I have more knowledge about COVID than anybody I know.
Then why did they send those people to nursing homes?
Because people were sent to nursing homes for different reasons.
Not that Google's algorithm itself. They already said, please let me.
I will tier 3 subscribe to you if you can verify your claim that that left-wing media was claiming 50% mortality rate on COVID. I will, whatever your highest tier sub, I'll do it right now.
All right.
And while you turn to Google as you just lambasted Brianna,
I'm not. I'm not turning.
Not only does Brianna's Google back her up, but the Pew Project for Excellence in Journalism also states that NPR shares with only one other news organization a 29% split, or a 21% split between Republicans and Democrats on believability, in spite of them being a mostly factual news source. Republicans believe stories from NPR at a 21% lower clip than a Democrat does, in spite of the actual truth of the matter. And this is a major problem.
So the problem is we can see the same mainstream media that overarchingly gaslit us about things like Biden's cognitive health, about Russia. Yes. And again, I understand. This is
facts don't matter.
Here we go. Victim Brianna, right? Victim Brianna. Next, she'll tell us that we're misogynistic because we don't like her constantly interrupting. I can talk louder and faster than you. I don't give a shit. Brianna, you're a crybaby. I understand the need to fill it, but I am answering.
Instead of insulting each other, can you find the 50%
shut the fuck
claim?
up,
You made a claim.
Wick, if you could do me a favor, you're not a debater here. You're not a good moderator, and you're not a good debater. So instead of this being the Wick show,
I'm a showman. Okay?
You're something. You're something. You're paid by Progressive
doing.
Victory PAC, and I understand you're desperately trying to save Brianna here because none of you are that talented
That's
politically or that good.
Brianna's getting on my nerves too. You're both getting on my
Here's the
nerves.
point.
All of you are getting on my nerves because what you're doing is you're sniping at each other instead of talking about this issue at hand. And our friend Elder Drazi is giving you a challenge, and instead of addressing the truthfulness of your claim, right? You made a claim, right? And we should probably check on whether what you're saying is accurate or not. But this is a problem. A lot of the times when I check on what you say after the show or during the show even, it turns out you're full of shit. You were wrong. Now, there's very good reasons that I've been wrong too. I get things wrong. I do. That happens, right? But if we're talking about trust in institutions, right? If we're talking about trust in general, if we're going to make a claim that we should be trusted more than the New York Times or the NPR, we should it would behoove us to be more accurate than they are.
A notable example comes from a survey conducted by Gallup Frank Templeton in late 2020. The survey found many Americans, especially those that identified as Democrats, overestimated the risk of hospitalization from COVID-19. While the actual hospitalization rate for COVID-19 was much lower, a significant portion of Democrats' respondents estimated it to be 50% or higher for unvaccinated individuals.
You said mortality rate, not his hospitalization rate.
Maybe I did. You're right. Okay. So it was the hospitalization, not mortality. Now, the reason I heard this was because I listened to left-wing cultural people like Bill Maher, who lambasted the left for this. And it was evident that Democrats the entire time through this thought that the fatality rate and the hospitalization rates of COVID was far higher than what Republicans thought, and they were far more off on that, right? So if you're going to say...
People that didn't think it was fake were more worried? Is that your claim?
If you thought that COVID was fake, what do you mean fake? You're telling me that there were a significant amount of people that thought COVID just didn't exist. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, can you show me?
I have spoken to doctors. I have spoken to doctors myself who had patients refuse COVID treatment, demand to be treated for something other than that because COVID isn't real.
It wasn't It wasn't a large percentage of people that thought COVID wasn't real. The majority of people thought that it was vastly blown out of proportion. Someone like me, for example,
the fact that people died because they thought it wasn't real, that's a large number to me. It's not 0, and it's not just 100. You can say it's not a large amount of people. When people are dying from it, it's a big fucking deal, and it's because people don't trust our institutions.
The fact that people's lives were destroyed and died because people like you overplayed how bad COVID was. Children were locked down.
I have never overplayed COVID.
Hey!
Ever.
You had your chance.
No.
You had your chance there. The fact that people that you seem to be...
Don't lie about me.
Okay, fine. I don't know if you overplayed it, but the fact that it seems to suggest that you're going along that... Can you tell me exactly how serious COVID was? Because it seems that you're very quick to jump on blaming people that underplayed it. So do you think that people overplayed it as well and that cost lives?
People overplayed it. People underplayed it. The underplaying of COVID vastly cost more lives than overplaying.
That's
you know what happened to
absolute
people that overplayed it?
What?
They ended up being way safer.
No,
they
they
ended
didn't.
up being the first ones to get vaccinated.
No, they
Yeah,
didn't.
they
So
did.
here's what happened to the people that overplayed it. They led to things like lockdowns. They led to things like children being set back years and years in the education system because through no scientific evidence they suggested locking down schools. They
I'm
led
not
to
saying it didn't
Years and
happen, but who
years.
died because they overplayed it?
the people that.
Yes.
Oh, you want an example? I can give you an example. Is that
yeah,
what you
you
want?
said
You want
people
right? So
died.
for example, are you aware of the
I'm
fact
gonna need
that
to see some numbers.
Oh, you need to see some numbers, Eldrazi? That's what you need to see? So, for example, the numbers in Pennsylvania where tens of thousands of people in nursing homes died because our governor said, we're overplaying the significance of COVID so bad that we're afraid that hospitals will get filled, so we have to send COVID patients into nursing homes. That particularly led to thousands of people dying. The same story was true in New York, where they then tried to cover up the numbers because people overplayed it. So tens of thousands
That
of
was
people in
not the
nursing homes died.
case.
Then why did they send those people to nursing homes?
Because people were sent to nursing homes for different reasons in different states.
Why did-
Some of them were sent there
Pennsylvania.
because so that they could get active care, whereas they had none. Some of them was due to hospitalization overcrowding, and some of them were just plain mistakes. A lot of people were making decisions very quickly. They did not have a lot of time. There was no plan set in place for something like this.
Isn't that interesting? I was
I
told
say
at the time,
something?
I was
Can I
told.
say something?
Go ahead, Brianna.
Hold on.
I'm sure you have something
We have-
intelligent
We
to
have
add.
we have 10 more minutes left. I want to make sure everyone gets their chance. Okay. Briefly, Brianna, and then we gotta.
I just will
I want to
say
at least
this-
try to address the topic.
This is exactly why earlier in this panel I tried so hard to not start going down these rabbit holes with Rob, because look at what's happened to the discussion. Rob made a claim about NPR, and then we started talking about COVID, and he couldn't fact check that, and now we're switching topics again. And now the entire panel, rather than talking about the actual subject, is going through this fire hose of bullshit and trying to address it. It is so frustrating, and this is one of the biggest problems. We cannot fix these institutions.
Yeah. Brianna, I agree. However, I have more knowledge about COVID than anybody I know, and I cannot knowingly let somebody publicly say something that isn't true
no
about it. That's
criticism of
fucking
you. Yeah.
crazy.
Sure,
I've been
I
very
understand.
good this whole time.
Sure. I'm
No, not yet.
criticizing.
Right, I know. You're the good person that's distrusting. We know Brianna likes that. Hey, just like Connor, maybe Progressive Victory will pay you guys as well. It'll be
I just
interesting
want to
see
point
how
out that
PAC
you
money
said
goes.
overplaying the significance of
Yes.
COVID led to people dying of
Yes.
what? What did they die of? What
First
did
off,
they die
Really
of?
just take a shot
so
at someone
I'll give
who's
you
not here.
I'll give you plenty of reasons that they died of. One, because the
Nursing home
overplay.
people? Was it
Yes, that's
COVID?
one. Yes. Because
See, with,
because overplaying the significance of how bad COVID would be in hospitals was the excuse given
Led to
by.
excessive COVID deaths.
What are you talking about? Like, the idea that they were scared shitless that hospitals would be overran because of COVID forced them to send people into nursing homes. So the argument was simultaneously made that we had to destroy people's lives by telling them that they were non-essential and couldn't go to work because if you went to work, you could run into grandma and she could die, while simultaneously saying we're sending COVID patients into grandma's room in the nursing home where she contracted COVID and died.
When the nursing home things happened, people were dying, and we didn't really have a lot of information about it yet. We were trying to get things under control. We were trying to create plans. Some of the plans didn't go great. Some of the plans went pretty good.
Hey, Eldrazi, let me ask
doesn't
you a
mean that people
question.
are
Back
overplaying
then,
it.
back then
They were
in March,
appropriately approaching.
April, May of 2020, if you had to guess, even with the limited knowledge you had of COVID at the time, who were the people most likely to contract or to have a serious case in COVID and die? Give me an example of who you would thought those people were, even with limited knowledge. You know more about COVID than anyone, so go ahead.
People with multiple underlying conditions and elderly people.
Right. And so would your decision with that limited knowledge have been, you know what we should do? Send COVID patients into nursing homes where there is a higher preponderance of elderly people and people with multiple health conditions. Would that have been your decision?
I can't tell you how I would make decisions based on information that I didn't have then that I have now.
No,
Okay?
but you did have the information, the same information they had. You knew that that was the people most likely to contract and die of COVID. And yet, with that information, Democrat governors in New York, in Pennsylvania, I believe in New Jersey, and others decided to send those patients into nursing homes. That's just one thing that they did. We're not even talking about
You know,
the deaths that resulted from the economic collapse from locking down the world economy by overplaying this.
Okay,
Rob,
okay.
I promise you my best
never
promise of
thought
talking
I'd
about
be in
this
a
anytime,
panel. I
but-
never thought I'll let you go in a second, Elder Drowsy, but I never thought it'd be a panel where you're blaming like these statistical deaths, like capitalism has killed like so many people, right? This is the type of argument. That's a style of argument that you're making right now. That because of the economic lockdowns, so many people died. You haven't given us a number. You just kind of vaguely gesture.
You don't believe that?
But this idea, right, that like. Because of economic conditions have killed so many people, right? Like, I mean, I guess, but it isn't compelling, and it's just not. There's so many like steps to it that it just makes it really indirect, and it's I think fundamentally. Let's again $5 from Turtle Emergency. I'll just combo break on this. Rob made a false claim regarding COVID mortality beliefs and now just keeps going with his talking points. Quit chasing him down, these Robbit holes. And thank you for the $5. But yes, we are going to, in the last 3 minutes of this goddamn panel, we're going to please, right, talk about whether or not the institutions deserve trust. Because we have, like, we know that they aren't trusted. We know that there's very good reasons, right? Very good reasons that they're not trusted. But the question I have for the panel is the alternative better? And I would posit no. And I think Rob has demonstrated exactly why it's not better. Because as untrustworthy as NPR and the media might be, my God, they're more accurate than fucking wherever Rob's getting his sources. Anyway.
That's not true, Wick. I would destroy you in a debate on pretty much any topic you want. And just asserting that I'm wrong.
next week.
For example, get a couple facts real quick. So me saying that extreme poverty kills people, you say that's outlandish, Rob. That's like saying capitalism kills people. So you
Because
just
the lockdowns killed people.
I said the economic collapse that resulted from the lockdowns, we pushed the number of people, food insecurity was raised 265 million
died?
people.
Name
200.
them.
The pandemic pushed 97 million.
That's the right pushback.
The pandemic pushed.
Do you think more people died as a result of the lockdown than would have if we had no lockdown?
Yes. Easily. Not even close.
You're a moron.
Okay. Show me the evidence that suggests otherwise. John Hopkins did a comprehensive report that said that there's no evidence that the lockdown saved significant amount of lives, but there's a lot of evidence that it decreased people's quality of lives and had other terrible outcomes. So give me. It's so obviously clear. For example, a country like Sweden, they didn't lock down, so surely their excess death numbers were through the roof, correct? Right?
No.
Why not? I thought lockdown saved so many lives.
There are other measures that they took. They very clearly did take.
Okay, but they didn't lock down.
They had fantastic contact tracing.
It is not the only possible.
Right, but your argument
like,
was
the
lockdown.
standard-setting contact
So
tracing
you
was
mean
bad.
so you mean to tell me there were things we could have done besides lockdowns that would have had better results?
Right, and what I suggested is if the answer was lockdowns versus nothing, I did not. You're talking about a middle ground, which I'm totally cool with talking about, but that's not what you were discussing.
No one suggested nothing. That's nonsensical. Who would suggest nothing? Like, I'll tell you.
I want to respect this closing.
Nothing, to be clear, you haven't suggested.
Okay, we got 1 minute, then I have to go to closing.